On this week's show, we are celebrating Women History Month by talking about women in the ICT industry. Welcome to the show where we tackle the tough questions submitted by installers, project managers, estimators, ICT personnel, and even customers. We are connecting at the human level so that we can connect the world. If you're watching this show on YouTube, would you mind hitting the subscribe button and the bell button to be notified when new content is being produced? If you're listening to us on one of the audio podcast platforms, would you mind giving us a 5-star rating? And if it's not a 5-star rating, let me know what I can do to make this a 5-star rated show. Those two little steps helps us take on the algorithm, which gets this message out to more people in the industry so we can educate, encourage, and enrich the lives of people in the ICT industry. And furthermore, while this content is free and will always remain free, if you would like to support this show, click on the QR code right there and you can buy me a cup of tea. You can schedule a 15-minute one-on-one call with me after hours, of course. Or you can actually just make even just a donation to help support this show. Thursday night, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. What are you doing? I do a live stream on LinkedIn, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, if I can ever figure out how that one works, where you get to ask your favorite RCDD, well, that would be me, your favorite questions about design, installation, certification, estimation, project management, even career path questions. But I can hear you, but Chuck, I'm driving my truck at 6 p.m. I don't want to get into an accident. That's okay. They're recorded and you can come back and watch them at your convenience. And you can always watch the recorded ones at our webpage at letstalkcabling.com. As I mentioned in the intro, March is Women History Month. It's also where they celebrate women in the career paths. And we got to, if you're honest with yourself, you realize that the construction industry, specifically communications, we haven't done so well with that over our history. We're getting better, but we haven't done so well with it. So we really need to talk about how to empower women to be encouraged to come to this industry and succeed in this industry. So I couldn't think of anybody better than the BICSI president, Carol Everette Oliver, to come on to the show and talk to us. Carol, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Hey, thanks a lot, Chuck. I really appreciate that.
Not a problem. It only took me 2 years, but I got you. I got you on the show.
I'm sorry. It's been a crazy 2 years, and I'm counting down now, 9 months left before I'm an immediate past president.
Oh, I know. Then you get to sit back and watch. Do all the past presidents kind of sit back and chuckle at the current president, and make them nervous?
Well, what happened? I don't know the current president, but you know what happens when you become the immediate past president? You now become the chair of the past president's council. I think that scares me the most.
So I got some questions for you, and it's all going to be centered around empowering women and getting more women to be attracted to coming to this industry. But you've been in history for quite a while. Quite a while.
25 years.
See,
Well, it could be more. 1996 was my first meeting with this industry and going to a BICSI conference.
gotcha. What initially drew you to work in a male-dominated industry?
That's a really funny question because I didn't pick this industry. It sort of picked me. I was in marketing. And as we know, there are a lot of women who are in marketing and advertising. And I was working for an advertising agency, and their client happened to be a fiber optic cable manufacturer. And like they gave me the account, and I don't know what interested me, but it was something that I'd never been familiar with. So I was doing brochures, I was doing their ads, I was doing their trade shows. That's where I went to a BICSI. And I thought, this is really interesting. So I just kind of, I think the industry picked me. I threw myself in, wanted to get more and more educated on the topic. And it didn't really bother me that it was male dominated until I guess until I went to my first BICSI and I thought, well, is this a good thing or could it be a bad thing?
I think a lot of people get in this industry on the same kind of trajectory that you did. I mean, I don't know of any 16-year-old kid saying, I want to go be a low voltage technician when I get out of high school. And I kind of fell into it as well. I mean, I never even knew of low voltage until I started dating a girl in high school, and her dad worked for AT&T. And that's not what not initially made me want to come into the business. But when I saw him going to Wyoming to go hunting, Alaska to go fishing, he always had a brand new truck. I was like, hey, ding, 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 ding. Yeah, what's he do for a living? Because I'm going to get out of high school soon. So I kind of saw what he did, and that's kind of how I ended up to it. So it wasn't like, I kind of, I grew up as a kid. There, the funny thing is, there's no low voltage Halloween costumes for little kids. Right?
Well, when my son, when he one Halloween, I actually dressed him as a cell phone.
Oh,
That
there
was
you go.
that was close.
That's too funny. That's too
Yeah.
funny. Well, as you know, being in the industry, we got a lot of tasks. We wear many hats, many,
Yes.
many hats.
Yeah.
And you're always juggling multiple priorities and all that fun kind of stuff. Tell us, how do you prioritize your daily tasks, and how do you manage your time so you don't run into conflicts?
It's difficult because it was easier when I was working for one manufacturer. You had certain jobs and tasks you had to do. This is your job. But now that I have my own consulting firm, you really have to put it as to, what's the hottest coal in that fire that you need to, yeah. So that's how I do it. And I've got to tell you, well, I guess you can't see, but I have sticky notes. And so every morning I come into my office and have to write, yes, on a sticky note, what I'm going to accomplish today. And even though I have, your calendar, you have all of this great technology that's helping you organize your day, it's what do you need to accomplish and what's the most important project to get done. That's how I do it.
It's funny that as soon as you said that, I was like, if she could only see my desk, I've got literally, I don't know, 20, 20 of them
Yeah,
sitting on my desk right now. And
I
and
put
and
them on
and
my
and,
wall. Yeah.
and
But
here's the thing. Here's so
there's only
some people.
one. There's only one that says this is, and it's just this small because if you have an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper and you're filling it out with what you're going to accomplish that day, you're not going to accomplish it.
You're not.
But if you put
You're
your
not.
priority on a sticky note,
So exactly, here's my process, right? So, if, for example, I got asked a question by a peer of mine, a guy I used to work with, about intrusion detection, fiber optic DoD kind of stuff, and that's not my forte. So I reached out to Phil Klingingsmith, the outside plant god.
guru, yeah,
Exactly. So he gave me some notes. I just talked to him literally like maybe an hour ago. So once I send this information along to the guy, I'll take this, I'll crumple it up, in the trash it goes.
that's right.
Done. It's off.
That's right.
It's gone,
That's right.
forgotten. I
Yeah.
move on.
So, you're right. And you're right, Chuck. So you have all these other sticky notes that are sort of like fluff around what you need to accomplish on that
Right.
one sticky note. To me, is
Right.
that one sticky note is today's job.
Yeah, I tried the whole, write on a matter of fact, I even got I do still use a notebook per se for some things. Like, I travel a lot, so I keep notes in that. But I find that if you have a page, like you said, you tend to fill it up, and you tend to fill up with stuff that doesn't, it doesn't really need to be done today or maybe even this week. And what happens is, I don't know if you're like this, but I know I am. Sometimes if I hit something that's really hard, I can't deal with right now, I'll just shift to a different task, and then I might forget to go back to the one that's a higher priority. So that's why I
Right.
said that's why I love the post-it notes. I should write a book on that. Time management by post-it notes.
Oh, I might end up writing a book
Hey,
on
we
it.
should co-author that. There you
Yeah,
go. There you
and then
go.
of course have it published on sticky notes.
Or each book comes with your own packet of sticky notes.
Oh, now you're into marketing. That's my realm.
Well, I do have a degree in marketing. A lot of people don't know that, but I don't put it out there very often. But I do have a degree in marketing. But
Yeah,
it is what it
that's
is.
it's interesting. Yeah, it's really interesting because I do too. I have a degree in marketing and journalism. So that's
Oh, very cool.
yeah,
That's that's absolutely cool. So
yeah,
you heard my opening remarks, right? And you've already said it yourself. This is a male-dominated industry, and
yes.
like I said, I've been in it for 4 decades, or just a touch over 4 decades now. And I remember I'd go to the events and it was all men, and then you'd see one woman, two women, three women. We're starting to see more. So in a male-dominated environment, how do you ensure that? What are the challenges you run into, and how do you make sure that your voice gets heard?
It's really interesting. I think, once you open your mouth and you say something intelligent, the guys in the industry will say, she knows what she's talking about. I think also getting the BICSI credential, I know that it was kind of on a dare because I was writing articles, and I don't know if you know the story about how I was told, oh, you'd be more credible if you had a credential and we could publish more of your articles because you're just a marketing writer. So I did. I went and got the RCDD on that dare, and that opens doors as soon as you give your business card. So I would say to women in this industry, get your credential, work towards, whether it's an installation, a technician, or even a designing tech, a credential. I would definitely advise women in this industry to do that because I think that adds a lot of credibility when people see that I've actually got that behind my name.
Right.
And I have three of them, although the ESS was sunsetted, but still
Right.
having it because I can always,
You got
renew
one
it.
more certification than me. Uh-oh.
Uh-oh, you better
Uh-oh.
hurry up.
I see the light at the end of the railroad. And the reason I asked that question is because I never really gave it a thought. I mean, as I was going through my career, I started seeing more and more women and more diversity. So I didn't really think too much about it. Just okay, I mean, whatever. I had projects that needed to be done. I had customers that were yelling at me. I didn't have time to think about much greater issues. But I worked for a company in Orlando for about a year and a half between my two major gigs I did, and it was a company owned by a lady. What's the name of that company? I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but she was very much like you, very intelligent and very strong. And I would go to meetings with her to the customer. She's the owner of the company. I'm just the estimator, although I was an RCD. And I mean, I watched her voice her opinion, and I literally watched other people in the room kind of like negate her, but I could say the exact same thing, reverbing what she said, and like, oh yeah, that's a good idea. I'm like, she just said the same thing. I just told you what she said, and that's why I realized this is really a problem here. And so, what do you tell the person who they heard your advice, get your RCDD, but you and I both know that's not something that happens overnight. That's
No,
that's a
it's not.
that's a 3 month, 6 month, 2 year
Oh, it,
commitment for some
it it is.
people.
It's a dedicated, yes, you have to.
Yeah. What do they do in that meantime while they're trying to get their RCDD? How do they make sure that they don't get railroaded or they don't get ignored?
Wow, that's a really hard question to
Yeah.
answer.
I
I think
didn't tell you my questions would be easy.
Well, but then you just said you said something and then the woman sort of regurgitated it. And I think that by listening to your peers and learning from your peers and being able to address the situation that you can address. If you can't address it, don't fake it. The last thing
Right.
you want to do is have something come out of your mouth that doesn't make any sense. And
Right.
believe me, I've been in a lot of meetings where people just are there to be heard and they say nothing or they
Yes.
put other people down, and that's no one ever respects that behavior as
Right.
well.
Right.
And that can be an issue in a male dominant world and our industry because a lot of these guys, if the woman doesn't have her credential or is just learning, they can say, oh, we're not listening to her, and that's and
Right.
that's sad. I don't
It is
know
sad.
how to rectify that situation,
Yeah, it is sad.
other than yeah.
Yeah, you're right. It absolutely is sad, and maybe I asked that question not necessarily for you to answer it, but maybe somebody listening to this might realize, oh, I have seen that happen, and maybe it might change their listening behaviors. M- My wife and I, we're both A-type personalities. It's so funny. We went canoeing on the Hillsborough River one time, and we learned that we can't be in the same canoe together. So we got two separate kayaks because two
Well,
A-type personalities.
you still live to talk about
Yeah,
it.
yeah. So what we found is while we're working, a lot of times is because she processes information differently than the way I process information. And so sometimes she'll say something and I hear it, but I'm not necessarily listening to it because I'm focused on my task. I'm task oriented. I'm focused trying to make sure I get this measurement right or cut this thing right. So I hear her, but I don't necessarily listen to her. And then I'll say, "Oh, hey, I'm going to do this." And she goes, "I just said that." I'm like, "Oh, I'm sorry."
Well, and there are ways to, if you think somebody's not listening to you, you can say, "Does that make sense to you?"
Yes.
You can, try and get them to respond back to you.
Right.
Because I think that women, I think everybody wants is never stops learning
Right.
and never I meet people and when they start telling me their point of views and I might not agree with them, but well, that's interesting.
Yeah, that's actually a great communications tip, actually.
Yeah.
Because number one, it ensures that you understood what the person said, so that way there's a
Mhm.
clear understanding. But more importantly, if you're a project manager or an estimator meeting with a customer, and you ask those kinds of questions or repeat back that kind of stuff, now the customer realizes, oh, he is really listening. So that helps you on two different fronts. So
Well, but you
communication,
also don't want them to they also don't want them to think that you don't know what you're talking about when you
right?
when you ask that, So if you're an estimator, if you're going into a project, you're project manager and you're a woman, you have to really know what you're talking about. And then
Yes,
you have to then don't doubt yourself.
right.
Believe in yourself. That's one of the things that I've been saying since day one is and that sort of carried me through my entire career. I know what I'm doing, and then I think this is the right way, and I think I'm going to do this, and I'm going to believe in myself. In fact, I got to tell you, not many people know, although I have mentioned it before, but as soon as I won the election to become the first president of BICSI, I
Mhm.
actually, believe it or not, got a tattoo that says "Believe."
No, you
So
didn't.
it's not on my shake your hand, and it's not really totally
Uh-huh.
obvious, but
Right,
it's
right.
something I can look at every so
There you
often
go.
and realize, I believed in myself.
There you go. That's I love tattoos, and I thank God the stereotyping of tattoos is kind of waning off to the side. But my son's a tattoo artist. Yeah, how
Oh,
can I not be into tattoos? Right? If he's a tattoo artist, unfortunately, he lives in Colorado, not here in Florida. So,
well, my belief that, when you see people just with all these tattoos, they have to mean something because that
it's a
little
story.
belief, it was sore.
Yeah, it's a story. Yeah,
It's a
absolutely, it
story, but
is.
it was sore to just put that little one on, and I just can't. But it does. When I see people, it's something that they believed in to put a tattoo on their body that's pretty permanent.
Yep.
And so tattoos don't bother me because it means
Yeah.
that somebody believes strong enough in something to do
Yep,
that.
yep. Oh, getting back to our communications thing.
Okay, sorry about
W
that.
w
We
Oh,
got
no,
off.
no, no, no problem, it's fine. I've always said we work in the communications industry. What do we suck at? Communicating, right? Yeah, I've always found that kind of an oxymoron for our industry, it just really is. Let me ask you this, how do you maintain a healthy work life, especially and balance, especially since you're a CEO? Because I know your brain doesn't shut off at 5:01 when the clock stops.
I tell you, I do some of my best work when I'm sleeping and I'm trying to write either a case study or article, and I wake up and I go, "Yeah, that's the angle I need to take." I think it's really important, and I know that a lot of people, especially the younger generation, they want to get ahead. They want to get ahead, but it is very important to slow down and remember who are the other people important in your life that support you every single
Yes.
day. Your family, your spouses, your significant others, your kids, your parents. So you have to take time, and your friends are important as well. So
Yep.
I try and not do work on the weekends, but that's not true right now. But you really have to take the time, and you have to plan for vacations and make sure that you take that time for yourself. And I've also talked to like I'm in the mentorship program, so I love my mentees. I've had two of them in the Big C mentorship program. They're great, and they after they're done with work, they spend their time trying to study for the RCDD or something. And I tell them, limit that time. Make
Mhm.
sure that after your work, you take about an hour to decompress before you do anything else, if it's going to
Mhm.
be work or if it's going to be a hobby that you have, but make sure you take time for yourself. And when I was working for a company and I would have a commute, that was my sort of decompressed time. But you've got to have more of a balance than just your commute.
Yeah.
So you really
Yeah,
have to plan, yeah, plan out your vacations, plan out your time off. Here I am in business for myself, and tomorrow's going to be St. Patrick's Day, and I'm like, I'm shutting down the office. I'm Irish. I'm shutting down the office at noon, and I'm just going to find something to do for St. Patrick's Day.
there you go, there you
Yeah,
go. Yeah, we're, for what we're doing for St. Patrick's Days, we have a Class C camper, and, we have this membership called Harvest Host, where you can go to wineries and farms and stay overnight for free. Well, there's a winery right down in Plant City, so we're gonna take the Class C down there and go eat on the deck, listen to some music, and then crash in the camper, and then come home Saturday. That's what we're doing
yeah.
for
So look,
for
Chuck, you're making time for yourself, for your friends, for your family.
oh, yeah,
It really, really,
absolutely.
really is important. I know my mother always said, if you don't make plans, and I mean fun plans, don't plan your next vacation. She said, what do you have to look forward to and live for? And I'm going, well, that's kind of an interesting thing to say, but I do the same. I always have a vacation planned as soon as I'm done with, one vacation. I always look at what I'm going to do next and plan that out.
Yeah, one of my biggest regrets in life is not learning that lesson earlier in my life, because as a young technician, we were always struggling to make ends meet because we were a single income family, and I had, like I said, for most of my career, I had 4 kids, and then I got 2 a little bit later on in life, and I wish so I was always going on out of town projects, working long hours to try to make ends meet and stuff. When I look back at my life, I really wish that I'd have gone to more cheerleading practices, more softball games, more football games, because kids remember that. They don't remember, oh, you built that building in for MCI WorldCom in Mississippi. They don't remember that, but they
Right.
remember you showing up
Right.
there every day.
Right,
You know,
right. That is so true. I did, and that's one of the reasons I went into business for myself because my kids were younger at the time, and I wanted to make sure I went there. And I was a co-Girl Scout leader, and I was a co-cheerleading coach, and I, helped my son with his karate lessons and drum lessons. So we're a very musical family. You can see my little ukulele in the back.
I
I
saw that.
actually Somebody asked me if I would teach a group. To play ukulele. Teaching music to a group is not easy, and I didn't think I had the time. And I said, "Sure, why not? Sounds like fun." So that's another reason, you need to make sure that you allow time to be able to do things like that,
Right,
out of
right,
the norm and something that might challenge you in a different way.
right. Let's shift the conversation and talk about how we can change the industry a little bit, right? So, what's a good way to advocate for gender diversity and to encourage other women to pursue careers in communications?
Yeah, there's actually a lot of things that we are doing, which I think we need more of. I mentioned the mentorship program through BICSI. That is an awesome program, and there have been women from from the mentorship program who have really excelled. And I have to say that my two mentee, one is now a subcommittee chair,
Nice.
another one is going for her RCDD. I think that when they see other women like that, and if they shadow you or whatever you want to call it, or you mentor them, I think more and more and more mentorship is important. The women in BICSI,
Hmm.
I think that every association has a women's section to it. I know that there's a lot of the other shoulder associations like Infocom, BICSI. We've got a women in BICSI, and I think getting involved in that, and that's been really important. It was myself and four other women that started the Women BICSI, and it was
Hmm.
just at that time a real small group because there were only what 3% of us in BICSI that were women.
Right.
It then moved up to 5%. I think it's almost at 7% now of women in BICSI. So I think just getting involved and looking at people that have been in the industry and like what you're doing now,
Right.
other women should be doing with other women.
Right.
to,
So
get their information. How do I do this? How do I do that? And, they can talk to guys and guys can tell them one thing or another, but if they see a woman that they want to sort of model their career after,
right,
I think that speaks volumes.
right. Absolutely. I got a question for you. The women in BICSI meeting that's held at the conference. Can men attend that as well, or is it just only for women?
There were a lot of men there. I would say that the room probably had about 30% men. And we really appreciated that because it's not, hey, you're not a woman, you can't come in.
Right.
Because you know what? These men that attended it, they support the women. And so it's great to see these men there supporting the women in BICSI. I think it was great. I mean, I just think that's, to me, that warms my heart to see
Right.
men who come in because it says, I support you. And
Yeah, and the reason I asked that question is I didn't do it this year because I was this conference just happened because I was super busy this one, but the previous one I went to, I don't remember who I'd asked, but I asked somebody about the women in BICSI meeting if I could attend that, and they said, "Oh no, it's for women only." I'm like, "Oh, okay."
oh, then you talked to the wrong person.
Evidently, and I figured, hey, I'll ask, I'll go straight to the top and ask that person, and that's why I asked you that question.
Or the
So
organizers, because, they would have definitely said, "Yes, you are welcome."
right, right. Well, so you are a very successful CEO. There's nobody can argue with that, right? What advice would you give other women who want to become a CEO or on their pathway to become a CEO?
Just do it. The thing is, it was easy for me because I'm CEO. And by the way, my name is Carol Everette Oliver. CEO are my initials, so I'm already a CEO.
I never thought about that. You're absolutely right.
Well, that's why I named my company CEO Communications. It was funny when I was thinking of a name and someone said, Carol, that's a no-brainer. Look at your initials. But for other women who want to either start their own business or become a partnership in a business or whatever it is, just again, I'm going to repeat myself, believe in yourself, figure out a way to do it, whether it's putting together a business plan, whether it's getting a credential, whether it's partnering with another woman or another man in the industry. Just do it.
Yeah, you don't necessarily have to partner with another woman. Just partner with anybody who's
Yeah, that's
successful.
what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. That does
But
not
but if
matter.
you do but if you do model after another woman, they're gonna be able to address issues that maybe a male counterpart may not have encountered or have had to try to clear that hurdle before.
Yeah.
So there are some advantages there, but don't
Yeah.
don't 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 just rule it out just because of a because of that one kind of an issue thing.
But again, anybody entering this industry at an early stage should definitely join a mentorship program or find a mentor. It doesn't have to be a formalized program.
Yes.
Find a mentor that you would like to fashion yourself and your career after.
Yes, you preach to the choir there. I wish I'd had a mentor earlier on in my life. I didn't get my first mentor until I was about halfway through my career, and I sit back and I think about, man, I could have. Who knows what I could have done if I'd have taken. I treated the first half of my career in communications as a job, not a career. And then once somebody
That's
opened my
wonderful.
eyes, yeah, once somebody opened up my eyes, and I really started to apply myself, doors started opening. The propaganda, the velocity of my career path started accelerating and stuff. And I just wish I'd done it earlier. I could have. Who
Yeah.
knows what I could have done? Yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah.
Well, believe it or not, so my mentors in this industry, they were men who
Mhm.
believed in me, who challenged me. Carol, you can do this. You can do this if you know, running for the president of BICSI, it was a couple of men that told me, you need to be the first woman president. I'm like, oh, no, no. Yeah, no, no, no. But so here I am. But it was, I was mentored by men, and we didn't have a woman in BICSI. The first woman that I saw with the RCDD ribbon, I was just so impressed and said, I can do that.
Yeah. Now, the problem I found with me was I waited so long to get my RCDD that I had 20 years of field experience. So when I was reading through the TDMM, I was like, that's not how we do it in the field. That's not right. But I realized the way I've been doing it was wrong. The TDMM was right. So
Right.
that was a hurdle I had to clear A lot of people come have that same kind of issue, but for me, that's my issue. That's why it took me 2 times. How many times did you take pass
Oh,
your test?
no, I passed all my exams I passed on the first time, and so you actually brought up a really good point, Chuck, because here's the deal, you were in the industry, so you knew, how you were doing it in the real world, but then there's the BICSI way, the best practices way. Now, had not been, in the field other than going on case studies and learning, but kind of just seeing what was good and what was bad and what was best cases and what the manufacturer was telling me, so I was sort of new to the industry. So I studied those TDMMs, and to me, that was the Bible. That's all I knew. Those were best practices, and I'm going
Mhm,
to
mhm,
study
mhm.
that, those volumes, those huge volumes. So um, for me, I think it was easier to pass it than somebody like you who'd been
Right.
doing things
I
wrong.
still fight that battle today, because you know me, I'm all over social media, TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, I'm everywhere. And a lot of times people will post something up and they'll say, they'll post up a picture or something, and then somebody will say, I don't like that work. And they go, why? It meets code. Uh, Code is minimum quality of construction. You should be striving for better than minimum quality. And
Yeah.
that's why I said you really should be. Here's what you should do. And they go, "Oh, that's that's the BICSI way. You don't have to do it that way." I'm like, if you want to be separated from the rest of the crowd, if you want to guarantee the performance, if you want to do it right, then you really should be doing it a way that a best practice manual, like the ITSA manual that you mentioned right before we got on. And every time I talk to somebody who says they want to get into a career, in this field, and they're like, Chuck, I'm currently a carpet layer, but I want to get in low voltage. What do you recommend? The first thing I tell them, go buy a set of field
Those
guides.
are great. I love those because, here's my ITSM, right? And
Yeah.
unfortunately, I have the 7th edition. We just came out with the 8th. But
Yep.
I love those field guides. Those
Yes.
are fabulous.
Yes. I refer to these things weekly.
Yeah.
Weekly.
Yeah.
And I've been in the industry for 4 decades. If I'm still doing it 4 decades, you, Mr. Installer, who's been doing it for 3 years,
Yeah.
should have your nose in it.
Yeah.
Because it does.
Well, and it's funny because everything changes so quickly and the whole history of the MPTL, right? You're
Yep.
putting a plug
Yep.
on the end of the horizontal cable.
Yep.
Well, so security installers, they've been doing it as soon as we had IP cameras. They were just taking the horizontal cable and they were putting an RJ45 on it. And the
Yep.
problem is, how do you test it, right? And then how do you know it's going to work for however you've got the warranty? And a lot of manufacturers, cable manufacturers, wouldn't warranty that scenario.
Right.
And so I was preaching that very early on, doing presentations on security cameras and what does that make the infrastructure look like and how are you going to prepare for that? And I'm like, hey, look, folks, this is what they're doing in the real world, but that's not what the best
Right.
practices are saying.
Yep.
So, and I swear it was like 15 years, maybe 20 years later before we came out with the MPTL and a
Yep.
way to test it. So,
Yep. Yeah, that used to be called direct connection, and then they
that's what I
changed
call it.
it.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
what I
yeah,
call it.
yeah, exactly. It's direct connection, and then the standards addressing called it MPTL.
Yeah, yeah,
You're right. It's like that. That's a perfect example. I get that all the time. Well, you can
yeah.
just crimp an end on and plug it in. Why do you even need a patch panel?
Or an outlet and a patch cord. What, to a security camera when you can just unplug that patch cord? Oh, doink.
Yep, 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 yep. Exactly.
Yeah.
Uh, so as I mentioned, our industry moves at the speed of light, and you just highlighted one of the things that kind of came about relatively recently. Not just recently, but it just changed the NPTL stuff. What do you do for professional development? How do you keep yourself current with everything that's changing in our industry?
Watching you, Chuck.
Okay, okay, smart Alec.
Hey, you have all these experts on, and I may not be there on Thursday evenings to watch the 6 o'clock, but I get the notification and I can go back and watch it. There's a lot of great webinars out there too. And of course, all of us who have our credentials need to get our CECs. So I would recommend not only, I mean, we go to the conferences, yes, but there's so many great webinars. You do a really great job in finding those experts, and I like to watch you a lot because it's very entertaining as well. I hope this has been a little entertaining for
Oh,
people, but
absolutely.
yeah, but CINM does a great job with their webinars. Manufacturers have webinars all the time. And when you find something that's, oh, I don't really know much about 5G, or I don't really know much about single pair Ethernet, which those two are not my favorite topics, but I
Right.
will
Right.
watch, webinars to at least be familiar, because these are products of the future and technology of the future. I love smart buildings, and that's why I was the chair for the smart buildings standard at BICSI. I just find that's fascinating, because who knows what is going to be put on our network next.
Exactly. I tell people all the time, I'm almost sad that I'm towards the end of my career because there's so much exciting stuff coming down the pike
Me
that just
too.
I it's just like it just amazes me. And when I go back and think about the old days when we had POTS lines for telephones, right? And it was obviously way easier back then, but there's so much new technology right now, and it is a challenge. And you just inspired me. You just inspired me. I was just got to thinking as you were talking about CECs and stuff, and maybe once a month. Like, of course, it all depends on the funds coming into the podcast, but maybe once a month, maybe I'll have to do some pre-planning and maybe get one of them recognized for a 1 hour CEC on a Thursday night.
That's a great idea. That's a great
Yeah,
idea. Yeah.
because I mean, I've had classes certified before for my day job, so I know how to do the process. It's just
Yes.
and I've got the
Yeah.
knowledge. All I got
Yeah.
to do is just put it on paper and then submit it and then do the presentation. I
Yeah.
might do that in the future, and
That's a
I'm gonna give you credit for that because you just put that thought in my head.
Well, thank you. But I bet you that what you've had in the past, in some of your podcasts that I've seen, you probably could have CECs awarded to them.
Well, the only issue I would run into is the majority of my podcasts are less than an hour. So, for
Yeah.
the credentialing process, you have to have 1 hour seat time, which doesn't include breaks and stuff like that. So that's what
That's
the issue I'd run into. Unless I put a couple of them together, I can find like maybe where I did a fire stop 101 and maybe an advanced fire stop and put them together and get an hour out of it. Um,
Well, Chuck, I think that, everybody knows you. I think you're well known in the industry and well respected. And I think if you did a webinar, whether you did it on a Zoom or your platform, or, somebody else sponsored platform, I think you'd get a lot of attention, because, you've been doing this for quite a few years. You won a great award this year. I'm so proud of you.
there it is. There
I
it
can't
is.
tell you how proud I was to be part of giving that to you. So congratulations.
Yeah, I know. It's like I told you that night that I was kind of talking to some friends at some tables. I was only half listening because you don't really kind of expect that kind of stuff. And you said, "Oh, this guy's been in the industry for 40 years." I'm like, "Hey, somebody's been in the industry as long as me. Hey, wow, very cool." And then you said he's a project manager, he's an estimator. Yeah, that you just described 2/3 of the people in the room. And then when you said, what was it? Oh, he's a storyteller, because that's on my LinkedIn. And I was like, not many people in the industry go by storyteller. That's what? And then I started listening, and then I'm sitting there going, oh God, no, no. And the funny thing was, I'm sitting in because they have 10 seats at those tables, I think, if I remember right. So I only knew one person sitting at the table. It was a guy that I used to work with. All the other people I didn't know. And then as you're going through your thing, the guy looks up at me and he goes, "I thought I recognized you. I was just telling my wife that I thought I know you from somewhere."
And you were way in the back too, because we're
I was in the
waiting,
very back corner, the
waiting
very
for
back
you,
corner.
waiting for you to get on stage.
Yeah, because if I was expecting, I wore a tie. I would have sat up in the front row. Yeah, I
Well, we
was.
just wanted to make sure you were there, so we had our little spies out there. Is
You
Chuck
did.
here?
You did well. You guys did well. So I
No,
appreciate having you on the show, and let's not wait 2 years to have you back
no,
on again.
no. I will actually, at the end of this year, be done with this term, and as I said, become the past president. There are responsibilities for that person. But I'm like you. I've had a long career. I've had a great career. I have no complaints. Um, and I will probably try and just, I don't know that I'll fade away or write a book, or what I will be doing in the next couple of years. So let's definitely keep in touch.
Absolutely. So I hope if you're a lady that this inspired you. If you're a man, I hope this inspired you to Maybe pick somebody and mentor them, help them along, or be a little bit more open to conversations. We also talk about a lot of great other stuff. It's a great episode. I can't wait to have her back on again. Remember, until next time, knowledge is power.
That's it for this episode of today's podcast. We hope you were able to learn something. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on future content. Also, leave a rating so we can help even more people learn about telecommunications. Until next time, be safe.